Welcome to the Fountains Studio Celebration. Whether it's in person or through text, email, or social media, we value all the various ways that we can connect with one another these days. And we understand that sometimes we may miss out on hearing about some of the important events in your life. So I encourage you to let us know what's happening with you and your loved ones by sending us a prayer request. And we, of course, always want permission before sharing your requests online. You can leave a voicemail message at the office or email it to welcome@weputlovefirst.org. Alternatively, you can fill in the online form available at tinyurl.com/fountainsconnection. If you're not already receiving our weekly Joys and Concerns email and eStreams newsletter, we encourage you to sign up on our homepage or inform the office via email or phone. We're grateful to all of you who regularly watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook. Subscribing not only keeps you up to date with our latest videos, but it also helps increase our visibility to potential new studio viewers. And if you interact with our posts, like leaving a like or comment on YouTube or Facebook, you contribute to the growth of our subscriptions and views by others. You're helping us amplify the message. So sharing the link with friends is also a great way that we appreciate you sharing our message as well. We're excited about the recent surge in YouTube subscriptions and are excited to be hearing from those who view the studio from all over North America. Your support is helping spread the word about the Fountains. Don't forget that while you're traveling this summer, you can always download audio versions of Sunday's message through the Podomatic podcast service. So however you choose to connect with us, we're grateful to have you as a part of the Fountains. Thanks for being here.
Join me as we get in the Spirit. We prepare for a new day.
Alive with the Spirit.
We gather with high expectations.
That much good can be done in and through us.
In good times and in bad.
May we know the joy of the Spirit's presence.
Dazzling to our watching eyes, far beyond full comprehension, secrets of the earth and sky. Each advance of understanding, each new piece of knowledge gained, leaves the soul amazed and humbled, childlike wonder yet remains. Nature teems with life abundant, stunning in variety, shape and size and color different, wondrous in complexity. From a high majestic mountain to the contours of a shell, life has much to teach of difference, rich we be to learn it well. Joy we stand in wonder at the life in which we share. Gratefully we find our spirits sensing glory everywhere. Sun and moon and tiny creature in their beauty stir the heart, leading us to sacred duty, call us well to do our part. Dazzling to our watching eyes, far beyond full comprehension, secrets of the earth and sky.
Let's affirm the Fountain's mission together.
As followers of Jesus,
We
we
put
put
love
love
first.
first.
As we enter into this time of quiet and meditation, I trust that you might sense the presentness of the Spirit at work in your heart and mind, working through our conscience, our relationships, and the events of daily life. The Spirit helps us dismantle the distractions that keep us from refining our sensitivity to the source of life around us and within us. As we reflect on ways that we can be more aware of the source of that which shapes us, moves us, and sustains us. In this time of contemplation, may we breathe deep, settle into the here and now, and be open to that ground of being that empowers us and all we are.
Where love and caring are, there is God. Where love and caring are, there is God. Where love and caring are, there is God. Where love and caring are, there is
Spirit of life, where we do not have the wisdom to help ourselves, may we be open to guidance. When the good we have known crumbles beneath our feet and we are mired down in conflict or self-pity, we need something more than our own humble resources.
We are often more ready to complain than to accept help, be it from one another or from the mystery that is you. We confess that it is easier to see the problems than the promise.
So on this very day, we open our hearts to the possibility of untethered and unpredictable grace.
May we be strengthened and guided to create something beautiful with our lives. This is our prayer.
We offer this time of quiet, bringing our whole selves in the name of the one who taught his first followers to pray the prayer we now sing together.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
Every day, the Fountain strives to put love first, both in person and online.
And if you're one of our many regular online viewers, we're grateful for your participation as a digital member.
Every week, you hear about all the many ways you can give electronically to support this online outreach, like using the QR code on the screen, going to give.weputlovefirst.org, or downloading the Banco mobile app. Then when you're on our secure giving site, be sure to look for the line that says Studio Celebration Donation.
A contribution here lets us know that you're out there, that the studio is important to you, and that you want to be part of supporting this growing digital outreach.
So wherever and whenever you're watching, we're glad you're joining us.
Thanks in advance for supporting the studio financially.
None of us are free. None of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Well, you better listen, my sisters and brothers, 'cause if you do, you will hear there are voices still calling out across the years. And they'll cry across the ocean, and they'll cry across the land, and they'll keep going till we all come to understand. None of us are free. No, none of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. None of us are free. No, none of us are free. None of us are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. And there are people in the darkness, and they just can't see the light. If you don't say it's wrong, then that says it is right. We gotta try to feel for each other and let our neighbors know we care. We got to get this message out loud and clear. Yeah, none of us are free. No, none of us are free. None of us are are free. None of us 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 are free. If one of us is chained, none of us are free. 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 If one of us is chained, none of us are free. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because God's given Jesus Christ the Son. And now let the weak say I am strong. Let the poor say I am rich because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because God's given Jesus Christ the Son. Give thanks.
As I've mentioned in previous Sundays, the letter of James is known as one of the general epistles. While it begins with salutations and greetings like any other letter, the bulk of the letter is non-location specific enough to show that it wasn't written for any specific congregation. It's for any group that's trying to get a grip on what it means to be followers of Jesus. Remember, too, that Martin Luther was not a fan, and to this day, a wide swath of folks, from evangelical fundamentalists to mainliners who don't know any better, emphasize grace alone and cast dispersions on what they call works righteousness. But if you look at the main intent of James, you can see that it is designed to give followers of Jesus some practical advice on how to live as a disciple in community with other disciples. And as I've said each week, and will continue to remind you, at the heart of James' message is faith without works is dead, which was important 2,000 years ago and is all the more important today when many Christians see their faith primarily being about believing in the right stuff. It's good to be reminded of the things we should be doing, and not just acting charitably towards others, but working to change the world in tangible and measurable ways.
Our words of wisdom are from James, chapter 2, verses 1 through 9.
My brothers and sisters, do you, with your acts of favoritism, really believe in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ? For if a person with gold rings and in fine clothes comes into your assembly, and if a poor person in dirty clothes also comes in, and if you take notice of the one wearing the fine clothes and say, "Have a seat here, please," while to the one who is poor you say, "Stand there," or "Sit at my feet," have you not made distinctions among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts?
Listen, my beloved brothers and sisters. Has not God chosen the poor in the world to be rich in faith, to be heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor.
Is it not the rich who oppress you? Is it not they who drag you into court? Is it not they who blaspheme the excellent name that was invoked over you?
You do well if you really fulfill the royal law according to the scriptures. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you show partiality, you commit sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors.
Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church.
Thanks be to God.
Back in 2014, I was a chaperone on one of the Fountain's Sierra Service Project mission trips. This one was to South Central LA. Now, I don't remember where we'd been working that day, a community garden or building something in Compton or Watts, but when we returned to our host church, Wesley United Methodist, I was exhausted. I'd been working outside all day, was unshaven, smelly, and wearing seriously grungy old work clothes. But I could not help but be drawn toward the sanctuary by the amazing music wafting out of the building. As the kids made their way back to the gym and showers, I stepped into the narthex to find out where the music was coming from. And as it turned out, there was a Spanish language service later that day, and the band was rehearsing. But no sooner had I stepped in the door than three well-dressed older Hispanic men approached me and blocked my entrance to the sanctuary. "Can we help you, sir?" one asked. Another said to someone inside, "Obtener el pastor." Go get the pastor. And for a second, I was a bit flummoxed. There was a lot of weird energy. Then it dawned on me. They thought that I was a homeless person wandering in off the street looking for whatever. Let me tell you, it was a seriously weird feeling to be on that end of the equation. Now, once the pastor arrived and I introduced myself as an SSP volunteer and all, the vibe changed immediately. Oh, come right in. Yes, please come back to the service later. So basically, it was the same script as you'd expect in most any church faced with the same situation. Why? Because we're all unconsciously running that same damnable Bible software called the Deuteronomic Code. You get what you deserve, and you deserve what you get. I'm well off because I live right, and God loves me. They're poor because they're lazy or sinful, and God is punishing them. When in reality, every single one of us is a product of much larger forces at work. Where and to whom we're born, our cultural and socioeconomic status quo, and straight up luck. So let me remind you, Jesus hated this Deuteronomic Code and preached and acted out against it in every way that he could, because he knew something most of us grow up conditioned to ignore and deny. According to the Bible, God does show favoritism, but it's for the poor. It's all through the Bible. And it's the flip side of the Deuteronomic Code on which many people base their whole worldview. A number of years ago, one of my colleagues, the Reverend Andy Maddock, was asked to speak to a youth conference in California. Andy's always had a flair for the theatric, and as he's had a year's lead time, he decided to do something dramatic. After consulting with his family and church what he was up to, he stopped shaving and getting haircuts a year before the event. A month before the event, he stopped washing his hair. Much to the chagrin of his wife and co-workers, 2 weeks before the event, he stopped showering or bathing at all. Andy was speaking on the third day of the conference, but he arrived early and for 2 days lived outside the convention center as a homeless person, pushing a grocery cart, sleeping in a stairwell, being moved along by the police. He intentionally put himself in places where the young Christian convention goers would have to interact with him. Not surprisingly, he was mostly ignored or shunned. Imagine the kids and counselors' surprise when the conference MC revved up the crowd, the music swelled, the cheers went up for the keynote speaker, and out onto the stage walked the homeless guy they'd all avoided, stepped over, or neglected the last couple of days. In the YouTube video, you can hear the crowd go from a roar to silence as the realization set in. They'd been set up, but in a way that few of them would ever forget. Andy then proceeded to share a message of awareness and inclusivity that reminded them that we're all made imago Dei, in the image of God, and that we have a sacred obligation to not only notice that reality in others, but to live it and project it in our own values and actions. And remember what James tells us today? Has not God chosen the poor in the world? When you hear someone say that God has a preference for the poor, it's not the crazed, bleeding heart rantings of some left-wing, communist, un-American radical. It's at the heart of the gospel. James is pretty straightforward and calls people out saying, hey, how is it that you're showing more attention and favor to a rich person visiting the church than a poor one? Have things changed? Not a lot, but they have gotten more complex. It's not just about who comes into our church. It's about how we choose to organize our society. We continue to judge people on all sorts of levels, not just clothes, but color, culture, sexuality, religion, gender identity, class, nationality, physical or mental ability, etc. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But sometimes it's hard for it to be at the forefront of our attention. We've got so many other demands on our lives. That's one of the reasons why author Barbara Ehrenreich took Andy's experiment one step further. She set out in the late 90s to begin an economic experiment that you can read about in her best-selling book, Nickel and Dimed, on not getting by in America. For 6 months, she lived the life of an unskilled but fully employed wage earner. In Florida, she worked as a waitress on the 2 o'clock to 10 p.m. shift, and then in the morning as a house cleaner for Molly Maid. In Maine, she worked as a dietary aide at a nursing home and as a hotel maid. In Minnesota, she clerked at a Walmart, the largest private employer in the U.S., with well over 1.5 million people on the payroll. Incidentally, a 2020 report found that Walmart, Amazon, and McDonald's were among the top employers of SNAP, that's food stamps, and Medicaid recipients. That's right, Walmart, Amazon, and McDonald's pay so little that we are subsidizing what they pay their employees with public assistance. In fact, in 2018, the last year that I could find solid data on, nearly 1 in 3 Amazon employees in Arizona were on food stamps. You didn't know that Jeff Bezos was on welfare, did you? Look, Ehrenreich admits that her experiment was artificial in many ways, but she did her best to keep it real. She lived in budget motels and dangerous trailer parks. She ate only what she could afford, which tended to be fast food, and she discovered that she really needed 2 such unskilled jobs just to squeak by, and overall found herself physically and emotionally drained. And heaven forbid if she ever got sick or needed health care. The reality is that the unskilled wage earners Ehrenreich imitated are the fully employed. They're not lazy, they're not destitute, not unemployed, and not abusing welfare. They constitute about 30% of the American workforce who earn less per hour than it takes to live. They are the people who make our American way of life possible. They clean our office buildings at night. They serve us at restaurants, repair our cars, sew our designer garments, hand-pick our fresh produce, and care for our suburban yards. Even though these people work long and hard, they barely make ends meet. Many of them are the people who were dubbed essential workers during the pandemic. According to the National Coalition for the Homeless, the latest data I could find, in the median state, a minimum wage worker has to work 89 hours each week to afford a 2-bedroom apartment at 30% of his or her income, which is the federal definition of affordable housing. In fact, Ehrenreich's colleagues routinely worked more than one job, slept in cars, and crowded multiple people into small living quarters where we don't see them. One of the reasons I love participating in Sierra Service Project with our youth is because it wasn't founded to just help keep a roof over the head of the poor or build accessibility ramps for the disabled. It's not designed to just give young people a chance to put their faith into action. It's designed to burst people's bubbles. At all the sites that we've served, at South LA and City Heights in San Diego, on the Navajo Reservation, participants are immersed in neighborhoods and communities that in the minds of many people have the worst reputations and are home to people who are discriminated against. And let me tell you from experience, getting out of our predominantly white, upper middle class bubble is a great exercise in answering James' question. How can you be a follower of Jesus and behave in a way which discriminates against people? The answer is easy. We do it all the time. Our challenge is to learn to make connections with people as people, independent of what our stereotypes or their appearance might say about their worth or their goodness. Sandra Hack Pulaski, professor of New Testament at Baptist Theological Seminary in Richmond, writes, "Actions that protect our privileged status and fail to engage the humanity of those in need reinforce our attitudes of favoritism." And yes, it has profound political implications. As Dom Crossan reminds us, the way we set up our system matters. It's the line item in a budget that guarantees that 500,000 kids will be hurt 6 months from now. And sort of, nobody did it. It just sort of happened. Isn't that a shame, we say? And do what we can to help the kids who are hurt. But seldom do we ask the question, how is it that we have a system that lets this happen? What does it say about what our priorities are? In our James passage today, dirty clothes are a symbol. We don't want dirt. Dirty people don't belong. It's just another purity code, plain and simple. People are being treated like dirt. And the striking thing about Jesus was that he refused to treat anyone like dirt. In this, he expounded what was already in the heart of the law, as the "love your neighbor" quotation from Leviticus shows. Jesus and today's James passage turn things upside down to redefine our purity laws so that the dirt is never people. The dirt is the attitudes or practices or political status quo that dehumanize and abuse people. James' call to us is not to simply critique the rich, not to simply empathize with the poor. We are called to stand in what Parker Palmer calls the tragic gap, the space between what is and what should be, the place between rich and poor, the place between the privileged few and the struggling masses. It is the place where we are called to stand, to listen, to see people as people, and to respond with love. We are on notice to notice. We're called to see people, and not just those right in front of us, but to do the work to see how the decisions we make as a community affect people we might not necessarily see in our day-to-day life, but who are, nevertheless, affected by how we live out our collective priorities. In his book, The Working Poor, Invisible in America, David Shipler avoids blaming politics of the left or the right and instead notes how poverty is both a cause of problems and the result of problems. A rundown apartment can exacerbate a child's asthma, which leads to a call for an ambulance, which generates a medical bill that cannot be paid, which ruins a credit record, which then hikes the interest rate on an auto loan, which forces the purchase of an unreliable used car, which jeopardizes a mother's punctuality at work, which limits her promotions and earning capacity, which confines her to poor housing. One of the things Andy shared with me from his homeless experience in Sacramento was his encounters with the police. He tried to stay in character as best as possible, unresponsive, uncooperative, because the kids were watching, and he was told he had to keep moving. It turns out there's a law in Sacramento against loitering. You literally have to keep moving. If you stop, sit down, or God forbid, lay down, you can be arrested. The state politicians didn't want any soliciting or panhandling near the Capitol building, so a law was passed to keep people moving along. As Andy noticed, it was selectively enforced. If you were a nice, respectable-looking person with gold rings and fine clothes, as James would say, you're left alone. But if a person has dirty clothes and looks like they might break out into a fit of panhandling at any moment, they're arrested. So, as Andy put it, there's a slow-moving cloud of people circulating through the city, just shuffling along, trying to avoid trouble. We usually talk about a cloud of witnesses as those who have gone before us, inspiring us. But maybe it would be a good practice to notice these other clouds of people shuffling along, just trying to avoid trouble, so that we can hear the call of Jesus, the prophets, and James, urging us to remember our neighbors as an extension of our very selves. May the Spirit continue its work in us as we strive to take our stand in the tragic gap, to stand, to listen, to see, to notice people as people, and to respond with compassion. Be well.
future lies beyond our sight, with tasks it may present. Be ready for whatever comes for each unplanned event. This message is a timely word to be awake to find the times and places to support outcasts of humankind. This message is a timely word to be aware to see the times and places to promote true peace and equity. This message is a timely word to be alert to know the times and places to express our love for friend or foe. The days of service are at hand. This is our solemn vow to pray for strength, to show our love. The time to act is now. To pray for strength, to show our love. The time to act is now.
Let us offer these words of challenge and blessing to one another as we go. As followers of Jesus, the word calls us into the world.
There is work for us to do.
The peace of Christ goes with us today and always.
May we be present to that blessing every day.
Amen.